So could you share a brief overview of your professional journey before joining Clutch?
So yeah, happy to. Well, I'm currently the senior director of operations at Clutch, but we've gone through a lot of different kind of iterations of my role and my professional experience. My first job out of school was when I moved to London. I had the opportunity to be a full-time employee, but at a youth-led nonprofit. So it was really interesting. It was a really unique experience. I'm always the most cheesy person in the room. I'm really into mission and vision and values. And so that organization was focused entirely on youth leadership development. One of the really cool things about it was I got to be surrounded by 9 different people with 9 different passports. We were all on one team. And what was great was we very quickly had to learn how to navigate a lot of different cultures and backgrounds and upbringings and experience and degrees and figure out how to bring out the best in each other. So I loved that job. I loved it so much that I kept working so hard that by the time my visa was about to expire, I had to think on my feet about where I wanted to land when I got back to the US. I'm really lucky that I chose DC. I very quickly found Clutch. So Clutch was around 20 people when I joined. I joined as a business analyst. So that was a jack of all trades role, did all sorts of things. And I found out super quickly that this organization was the kind of place where you get out what you put in. And I knew that if I really invested myself, I would be able to really craft a career that would benefit me, that would benefit the company, and that would be really fun along the way. So at Clutch, I've done things like had a brief stint in charge of our professional development program, which I mostly just did book clubs. And then we got a people team, and I was very happy that we had some experts on that. I did a little bit of strategy development, organizational design support with my manager, and contribute to all sorts of things. One of the most exciting eventually was, the build out of an operations team. So it led me into ops and operational efficiencies and all of that stuff. But it's been a really cool and a really rewarding journey so far.
Great. Thank you very much. That's amazing. And how did your interest in technology, AI, and operational efficiencies develop? And how has it influenced your career path?
I'm a total nerd. I always have been. But I think I've always been interested in this broad thing we talk about as operational efficiencies. I My parents joke with me still that they used to tell me I should be an engineer because I would be at home rearranging the fridge or rearranging my room or redesigning something around the house because I was always trying to find the most efficient way to do something. Might be because I was lazy, but I like to think it's because I have an ops mind. But my parents, they'd always tease me about it, and I'm sure it frustrated them. But when I started my professional career, it wasn't, a bug I could shake, right? This idea of, doing things more efficiently, faster, better, higher quality, and operational efficiencies is really just code for making things easier, or more efficient or higher quality. And for me, what I've realized is this year in particular, there's no way to be really passionate about operational efficiencies if and be unwilling to play with AI, right? Right now they go hand in hand. So you need to, or I feel that we need to tie the two together. As operators, it's our job to think about how can AI smooth out this process or make this higher quality. So I'm not technical, I don't write code, but I am focused on AI implementation and adoption across my team, particularly what it can unlock for Clutch as we continue growing. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's just a really exciting time to be in ops because AI is here and it's really impacting our day to day and what we do.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's brilliant. And can you recall any pivotal career experiences that significantly shaped your professional direction and focus?
Yeah, um, definitely. So one of the things that I think was really pivotal for me was working in London and working with this group of 9 people with all of these different passports. For me, it was really, truly, fundamentally cool, I guess, to be able to be surrounded by people who were so different from me, who sometimes really challenged me. And sometimes, I'll be honest, we didn't always get along, but it taught me how to partner with somebody, like truly be on their side, recognize their strengths, and do my best to bring out the skills that they brought to the table, because I saw them doing that for me too. And now, as I think about how that has really shaped my focus as I've grown into, the career I have today, that is a big tenet of how I think about my team and how I want to develop them. There's a book called Multipliers, which is all about this. Again, total nerd, but I think that experience that I had in London was so challenging and so unique, but so fundamental to no matter what my day-to-day responsibilities would become, how I would operate in business.
Great. Yeah, it's a wonderful story. And how did you acquire the skills and knowledge necessary? You mentioned a book, but for your role at Clutch, particularly in implementing AI tools and exploring AI use cases?
Well, everybody's in the same boat with AI right now, I think, or at least a lot of us. And needing to find a way to quickly learn about AI it's just, we're all in it together, right? Clutch, actually, I think this is really cool. We recently did a survey and found out that 82% of small business owners expect AI to disrupt their businesses in the next 5 years, either by building out AI tools of their own or by being present in their industry or in their market. All of us in business are learning about how does AI play into my job, and how do I need to approach learning about it. So at Clutch, we're very, very fortunate to be just a really cool and forward-thinking company. Early this year, we set up a task force that is full of all these cross-functional team members. They come from all over the company, not just, right, the technical ones. And they're working to find these great, innovative ways to bring AI both into their internal processes and into our marketplace. And so it's been really exciting to see, a group of people who have all sorts of different levels of experience with AI, and they're, diving in deep and understanding how can this help grow our business. For myself, I've been kind of taking my lead from them. I've been focused on just learning by acknowledging I don't have all the right answers. And it's, been pretty standard for my career so far. And just looking for, what is some context clue that can help me figure out the next question to ask or the next person's perspective to get. And what does that tell me about how I want to implement AI, either in my own work or in my teams or in the broader companies.
How do you collaborate with different teams and align your operational and AI initiatives with the overarching goals of Clutch?
It's a good question. I think collaboration is always an interesting topic. So luckily, Clutch has goals to implement AI both internally and externally. And within my own team, I have OKRs for AI adoption. And so that makes it pretty easy to think about, how do I partner across the company to drive, different AI initiatives. I'm also lucky that I'm in ops. So in ops, all the other teams at my company are my customers. And so I can't succeed unless I figure out how to collaborate with them. And so I have found, the process for collaborating, again, I'm cheating because I'm in ops, but it's not all that hard if you have a shared understanding of what you're trying to achieve. It does look different, but I have found, three like core tenets of how I'm successful in collaborating. The first one is I'm always thinking about, a rhythm. I've had, tons of different type of partnerships across the company over the last several years. Each one seems to have its own rhythm. By that, I mean a cadence, a culture, a tone, an inside joke or two. Each partnership that my team has with somebody else, I want it to develop its own culture. That makes it so much more fun. And then the second piece is active listening, right? Really wanting to understand what's that person's goal, where are they coming from? And also, sometimes it takes reading between the lines and what's the person maybe saying, but not saying, right? They didn't like that thing that my team did for them, or, oh, they really had hoped this would unlock something else, or, oh, that's almost their goal, but there's something deeper beneath that pain point that they're telling me about. And then the third one is, and this is probably my favorite, but this just genuine curiosity. I really think it's fun to show up to work and to be curious about what your counterparts and other teams are doing. And if you take that approach of just learning about your counterparts, I think that collaboration, whether it's AI focused or really honestly anything, becomes much, much easier.
Could you share any experiences where you had to advocate for a particular AI initiative or approach within Clutch? And how did you navigate any arising challenges?
Definitely. So definitely. As I saw this question in your prep notes, I was like, oh, a lot. No, I think in terms of initiatives, particularly around AI, where we've had to advocate for being able to drive forward a project, there are always a ton. For me, one of the biggest ones on my mind this year has been focused on the review integrity and our platform authenticity at Clutch. So we are a company very, very much focused on our vision and our mission, and we're focused on empowering better business decisions as the leading marketplace for B2B service providers. There's no way to continue to improve and to grow towards that mission if we're not kind of thinking about how AI can be part of our process. We already do an exceptional job as it relates to everything content integrity. I'm actually astounded by the work my team does to ensure that our content is exceptional. We work very, very hard to verify as much of the content on our platform as we can. But, in this year in particular, everybody's thrilled about AI. And I'm not alone in trying to drive AI adoption at Clutch. And that means inherently, I have to find the right way to advocate for these ideas. And that's pretty standard. So my strategies for advocating for my AI initiatives and the things that I think will be the biggest unlocks for my team or my process or whatever I'm doing are honestly really not far from how I collaborate across the company. Again, I think my focus is always on defining the business purpose and the expected ROI of any initiative. Sometimes that takes a lot of digging, right? And figuring out what would actually be required for this implementation. What would actually go into this? Who are my cross-functional stakeholders who I'd have to partner with to get this done? And what would it say about our brand or our purpose, or how would it help us achieve our mission, right? Tying it back to the top level of the business is always really important. I'm always also determining the LOE, the level of effort, right? Is this an easy lift? I can go ahead and go forward, or is it not? 9 times out of 10 these days, it's not quite that easy lift, but that's what makes it fun. And then just ensuring that my team, and my stakeholders have a thorough understanding of company-wide goals. And that sometimes takes just going to our leadership team, going to my counterparts across the company and saying, hey, what are you seeing in this company that I'm not? Right? What are you hearing about how we're growing, or our challenges, or your colleagues' challenges that I'm not? Being able to have that holistic understanding of where we are, where we want to go next. And then finally, it was just, being open-minded and adaptable. We all have plenty of ideas that don't get actioned on, or, especially not right away. And that's okay, right? I think I really buy into this idea that you're surrounded by people who often are smarter than you, and almost always are smarter than you on at least a couple topics, right? And so being open-minded to that and saying, okay, I can buy into the person's vision for what we're doing here. That's been my approach and my kind of focus this year, as we've all been really trying to drive AI adoption. There are so many applications of AI at work. So trying to make sure that you do your due diligence advocating, but then you also accommodate when it makes sense.
Who are your professional role models and how have they influenced your approach to your work?
My professional role models have evolved, I think, depending on what I'm looking to evolve in myself at the time. Uh, but I would say the role model that stands out the most this week, for whatever reason, has been Blake Mycoskie. So Blake Mycoskie is the founder of Tom's. So this was my first like business role model, right? And I was introduced to him and shortly after given his book called Start Something That Matters. And I learned about the concept of social entrepreneurship. And what I thought was really cool about this was that a company can be both successful and impactful. And I very distinctly remember turning the page. I was on a plane, turning a page, and the chapter or the title of the next chapter was Giving is Good Business. And I thought to myself, like, well, that's odd. That's different. Like, what does that mean? But at the end of the day, as I was reading this chapter and I was like thinking about the companies that I really admired, I started having this shift in my vision or my viewpoint on business as a whole. Up until that point, I was a little cynical. I always thought businesses had to always have this zero-sum game set up. I win or you win. There can be no version of this where in business everybody benefits. But what social entrepreneurship and Blake Mycoskie introduced me to is that actually businesses can and honestly should have a positive impact. And so I don't currently work for social entrepreneurship, but you have heard me talk about my values and the company's mission. And so I think it's really clear, right? I buy into this viewpoint that a company should have a positive impact on its employees, on its customers, on its market. And I attribute that back to Tom's Shoes and Blake Mycoskie.
Great. Yeah, no, I love Tom's, one of my favorite brands. So I completely agree there.
Nice.
Awesome. And can you discuss a project or initiative at Clutch where you felt your unique background and approach had a significant impact?
Yeah, a major focus of 2023 has been not only the content integrity of our reviews, we're a marketplace. So not just content integrity, but also, the SLAs that we hold ourselves to. So some important context here, Clutch's reviews are really unique in our space. They're super detailed, they're really thorough, they're incredibly authentic, and they, as a result, create these really meaningful connections between buyers and B2B service providers. Well, scaling that process is always going to be difficult. And so one of my major focuses and initiatives coming into 2023 was to focus on how do we continuously improve the SLAs with which we deliver our reviews. We are unique, right? Because we're so focused on authenticity and detail, we actually take the time to work to verify every review that comes into our site before it can then get published. You can imagine that's a wild challenge as an operator. I think a really fun one, but when you're looking at SLAs and how you help make sure that content gets in the door and then back out, right? There's a real operational process there. At the start of 2023, looking at this process, I was like, okay, well, how do I make this better? How do I continue to improve this with my team? And what is my skill set? Why am I in the role I'm in? What can I contribute to this process? And for whatever reason, I thought back to my days in London, right? That cross-cultural, or what really became cross-functional leaning that I tend to always look for in whatever I'm working on. So I took that experience. I said, okay, well, I know how to do that. So I sat down with our strategy team and I talked with them about staffing needs and capacity. And then I sat down with our global operations team and I talked to them about productivity gains and different ways to configure things like shifts or timing or anything like that. And then I went to our product team and they probably hate it when I do this, but talked about product improvements and what else can we do to make this process more efficient. Finally, I went to my people managers and I was like, well, at the end of the day, we have so many people involved in this process. What are their motivators? What's going to bring them the most joy? What's going to feel most rewarding? And I was really excited because I was able to bring together a lot of these different perspectives and identify two of the biggest. My team knows me for talking about unlocks, right? So two really great unlocks. The first was a discovery that our team hadn't been using our in-house generative AI models as much as we had wanted. And so we dug into that a little bit. We put in all this work to develop an NLP model to help support this process. And we thought, well, why isn't it being adopted to the rate that we would have expected? Well, it turns out from our people managers, right, that our team was nervous about the learning curve of a new tool and a new process. And they wanted to lean on a process they already knew, because that way they understood the quality of their work, they understood their output. So it was counterintuitive to help improve our SLAs, but we actually decreased our targets at first and said, okay, we need to give our team the time to buy into this new tool. So we did a temporary drop in targets to allow our team to say, hey, our goal is not just that you have the highest number of output this month, but instead, our goal is that you really adopt this change that can have a really great long-term impact on our business. And with that foundation to start driving adoption of AI, we were able to then find out, maybe we can turn the tide on this by issuing a spiff. There's nothing like a good spiff. I know they're typically used for a sales team, but I think they can work in ops too, right? And so we went to the team and we said, okay, here's the goal. It's a team-wide goal. It's also an individual goal. And really importantly, I think for ops spiffs, if anybody else is doing them, we set a quality standard in addition, right? So don't go so far on an output number that you sacrifice your quality. And through having really, really clear guidelines and measurements and goals, we were able to really hit the reset button on some of our SLAs and been able to really rapidly make some change ever since that spiff was put into place and then was able to come to fruition to really improve. So it was a really cool initiative to be part of and to partner with my team on and cross-functionally on, that I thought was has been a really interesting way to look at AI as a whole, because it's not just the technology, right? It's how you bring people into the adoption of this new technology.
Yeah, no, I never thought of that, using adoption as a success metric. That's a really brilliant way to look at it. Great job. And how do you measure the success? You kind of talked about it, an impact of operational and AI-based strategies and initiatives.
Yeah, my team knows me for always setting a North Star, or more commonly 3, which is, I guess, probably not correct in astronomy, but we'll take it. But I'm always setting some sort of North Star for every initiative that I'm part of. I find it really important because it helps me set the purpose of why am I working on this. So some examples of North Stars would be like efficiencies, or it could be process confidence, process adherence, like you said, adoption. Sometimes, even though I'm ops, it's more straightforward. It's revenue or any number of things. But my North Star always gives me the chance to back out from a purpose into a metric, rather than jumping straight into what's the metric I'm measuring. So revenue is the easy one. If I'm measuring revenue, or if my North Star is revenue, then that's giving me my metric. But if I'm thinking about process confidence, then I might be thinking about QA systems, right? And making sure that, does whatever initiative or project that I've worked on pass our quality assurance. If it's efficiency, I look at time per task, or completion rate. There's all sorts of things around AI tool accuracy that we look at Clutch. There's a ton there, but the metrics and the North Stars tend to be different. But as long as you're following those 2 first steps, everything else from there gets easier, because then all you have to do is like make your best guess. In best case scenarios for all of the projects I'm working on, I can set a hypothesis, But I tell my team these days, even if you have to take a shot in the dark, set a goal, right? And at the very least, you'll learn that your goal was wrong. Um, but most of the time, you're closer than you think you are. And that's going to tell you, what do I need to change next time I do this project, or next week when I continue this project? From there, it's all about just measurement, right? You've done the really hard stuff then by setting your North Star, by defining your metrics and setting a goal. But one of my things that I've been introduced to had to be like a decade ago. But somebody said to me somewhere along the way, you get what you measure. I really buy into that. Again, total nerd. I love numbers, but I do buy into you get what you measure. And so my team and I always set up a weekly cadence on whichever metrics we're monitoring for a new project or initiative, and saying, okay, every week we're going to visit what we are doing or how we're doing against that shot in the dark goal we took, and decide if we need to adjust, stay the course, or move to a new project altogether.
And are there any upcoming AI-centric projects or AI implementations you're excited about at Clutch that you can share?
Yeah, that is the question. There are a lot of things going on at Clutch that surround AI. One of the things that I will say that I do think is exciting, and I can definitely share, is that we have found that there's a 377% year-over-year increase in the search volume for AI services. And what I think is just so cool right now is how many businesses are looking to implement AI. And that's both developing in-house tools, or it's finding service providers who can work with them on development or implementation or consulting. This is a whole area of business that is just growing like crazy. And so while I can't talk to you about everything that's on Clutch's roadmap, what I can say is we're in a really, really cool place right now, because that search volume is just telling Clutch, we are here to help serve those businesses who are looking for a provider to help them build that tool, implement that tool, try out that new strategy. So I love Clutch, if you can't tell. But I think it's a really exciting time to be at Clutch because of the amount of growth and these really strong signals for a need for something like Clutch.
Oh no, that's a really eye-opening statistic. That's amazing. All right, so we'll end it with this one here. Looking back in your career journey and your experiences with AI or technology in general, what advice would you give to individuals aspiring to pursue a career in operations and technology integration?
I think that's a really great question. And I had to think about it. What I tell my team, which is what I decided to lean on and share with you, is to not be afraid of not knowing answers. So my team is all about operations and its intersection with technology. And often it can be really hard not to feel like I know the answer to something. But my advice is that you don't need to know an answer. I would also argue that you don't need to know every question you're supposed to ask. What I say is you just need to know the next question to ask, and be ready to listen to the context that whoever you can find around you is willing to give you. Even if it's not always the right answer or the most relevant answer that you're getting from that person, there's something there telling you what you can do with that information. So I always say, keep an open mind, listen, look for the context clues, just figure out one more question you can ask, and that'll tell you what to do next.
Oh, that's great advice and a brilliant way to end it. Thank you very much, Kimmie.
Thank you.